Hello everyone, my name is Filipi Pires and today we're going to talk about how you can improve your code, your development process in this awesome event, right? So again, I've been working as a principal security engineer in security research and security advocate in many different fields when you talk about the cybersecurity. And by the way, I'm security research at Senhasegura. Senhasegura is a global company responsible to provide some solutions about PAN. PAN is acronym of the Privileged Access Management, right? And I'm researching this company, and I'm advocate of the Hacking is Not a Crime project. And by the way, this is awesome project. The idea behind of this project is to talk more about this concept calling hacking, right? Because hacking is really not a crime. When you talk about the crime, we talk about the cyber criminal. When you talk about the exploitation, the ransomware, it's about the cyber criminal, right? It's not a hacker. Hacker, it's a lifestyle, how you can looking for some software, how you can use your creative mind. This is concept behind of the hacker, right? By the way, this is my homepage, filipipires.com. You can find more information about me and about my talks in English, in Portuguese, and Spanish, by the way. And other information I will show you during these conversations. I'm a Red Team Village contributor, so I'm a part of this community in the US. It's a very nice community. Then we talk about the Red Team. And in this case, it's offensive security. So how we can looking for some applications, how you can, exchange knowledge in this specific community, right? And I'm a part of the staff team, I'm a coordinate team and the DEFCON group here in São Paulo. And by the way, I'm talking from Brazil in this exactly moment, right? And this community is responsible to share knowledge about the DevSecOps culture and about the security, about the offensive security, defensive security, and stuff like that, right? And I've been talking different events around the world, right? And I'm creating a structure of this two course, right? And malware attack types with the Q-chain methodology, in specifically in Pentest magazine, and about malware analysis fundamentals in HackerSec, right? And this is my homepage. Once again, here you can click in presentation talks. We can find more than one talks and different topics related to cybersecurity, and some articles that have been published in Pentest magazine, in Hack9, in a Forensic magazine, and other magazine around the world, right? So today we're gonna talk about the DevSecOps, right? And this is event specifically about DevSecOps. And I would like to show this specific article just to putting all those people in the same page. Of course, I will talk more about some open source tools, very, very nice, that I would like to recommend you to test in your environment. But I think it's very important to clarify this concept, right? This different concept. And I found this specific article on the internet just to show you. I think probably you know about that, but just to clarify the difference between, to put all those people on the same page, right? So basically, what is exactly SAST? SAST is basically Statistical Application Security Tools. Basically is a white box testing, when you see for some code and you can see how this code works, and you can run in some scanning inside of this code, and you can find different, for example, vulnerable code inside of that, right? So this is approach when you talk about the SAST. When you talk about the DAST, is another approach, is dynamic application security testing. Basically, it's a black box. So after the commit of your applications, you have the endpoint, the URL, publish it, right? And you can run basically the scanning within this specific URL to find some possible vulnerability. Or after you commit your code, you create some, for example, a container, you can run inside of that and you can find some possible vulnerability inside of that. Other concept, Felipe, and about the IAST, Interactive Application Security Testing. Basically, it's another different approach. You can use in both of them, the SAST and DAST approach. You can using some tools to help in this specific process, and you can using, for example, a DAST, another tool to help in this process. But you have a guy, to using some interactive functions to perform some scanning, right? And another approach is about the RASP. It's a runtime application security testing. In this case, it's another approach, right? So works inside of the application. but it is less testing tools or more a security tools. In this case, it's more focused in application security. So this is basically four SAST, DAST, YAST, and RASP. Four different approach, just a concept. And of course, you can find many others informations about that. Just to clarify some concepts that you can put inside of this specifically DevOps environment, and you can set the security inside of this specifically life cycle, exactly when you're looking for some software and you put in the security inside of that, right? It's very important to understand that. So let's talk about our main tools. And by the way, I explain more about these tools in another event about the Conf42 and others events about the RSEC. What is exactly RSEC, Filipi? RSEC is basically an open source tool responsible to perform some statistical analysis to identify security flaws during the development process. This is very important you understand that about all those development process, basically, right? And this is very interesting because you don't have the limit to work specifically program language. You work with a specifically development process. You can use in different tools, like for example, Terraform or TypeScript or Kubernetes. It's a different, not only a program language, but you can use in different tools to analyze the security codes, right? You have a different approach. Basically, you can click here in documentations or other to understand more about this specific documentation. Let me explain about this link here in community, right? If you click here in community, you can open here in open forum. Basically, you have here the RSEC in English. You can click here and you have here the opportunity to exchange informations with the community about your doubts that you have when you try using this. You have the specific team inside of the Zup Innovation responsible for this specific open source. Basically, Zup Innovation is the company responsible to maintain these specifically tools, right? And you have here the forum .zup.com.br, right? Of course, it's a BR. BR, it's Brazil, okay? Brazil, it's a Brazilian company responsible to maintain this specifically project, as you can see here. The GitHub project here, you can click here in to see all those folders inside of this specifically project. And by the way, you can see here the example folders. Let's check here, example folders here. If you click here, you can find here many vulnerable codes to test itself, right? You can executing the scanning inside of this vulnerable code, for example, like a Python, like a Ruby, like a Perl, like a Nginx, or Kotlin or JavaScript or other program language, as you can see here, right? And that's the point here. So that's very important to understand that, okay? And let's continue to explain here about the documentations about the RSEC, okay? And if you see here, so you can click here in overview. This is the explanation about what is exactly RSEC and what kind of program language and tools it's available to perform this specific scanning, right? So how does RSEC works? As I mentioned, RSEC CLI, I don't explain during this presentation. My focus today is to explain more about how you can use inside of this specific IDE or using a web application, right? It's very interesting. So let's click here in extensions for IDE. You can click in here in overview. And today the idea is very easily to integrate it with some tools, as I mentioned. And basically the IDE supported by the RSEC is Visual Studio Code, okay? Probably because it's very common, but if you want to using as an extension or a plugin in another text editor, you can open this specifically pull request inside of the GitHub, and you can, maybe the community can request in another different editor text, okay? So that's very interesting. So basically how this works, Filipi, here I have my RSEC demo here folder. What I found that you can use in a GitHub specifically, as I mentioned, the folder example, or you can go in my specific GitHub, Filipi86, you can find here. You can click here in repositories, and after that, you can click here in RSEC-demos. If you click here, you have more than one vulnerable code, as you can see here. and you can execute itself. You can test inside of your environment. Okay, so I have here the autosec. You can click here in extensions, and after that you can set the autosec here. And if you see here, here is the extension. After that, you download this, you install this here in your specific environment, and basically you can click here and this specifically play to run the scanning. After you click here, as you can see here, the hold on autosec started to analyze your code, and in this specifically moment I will executing this specifically analysis coding. For now, we waiting the specifically scanning. Now I would like to explain more about how you can use in a different ways the autosec. So if you return here in overview, and you can go more here to understand about this specifically tool, I would like to explain about what kind of types of the analysis is performed by the autosec. Basically, the first is a SAST. Remember what is exactly SAST? Is a statistical application security tools like a white box. Another very interesting function, it's about the leaks. So the leaks checks the source code for a possible leaks of credentials or private keys or hard-coded password inside of your specifically code. And another is about the dependency audit, not only dependency audit, but dependency check, as I will show you here. For example, when you look more about the SAM tools, I will explain more about that. But you can check about the third-party libraries inside of your code. Very, very interesting and very, very useful for you. Another here, as you can see here, you can run it locally and CLI, as I mentioned, inside of CI/CD pipeline using, for example, GitHub Actions, code building, or Azure CI/CD and others, right? So we have another example, and if you click here, and for example, on CLI, you can open here in my case here in CLI and installations, and go more here. You have different binaries, as you can see here, Windows and Linux. But I would like to show here the possibility to use in a Docker image, as I mentioned, using a pipeline, as I mentioned, right, and using GitHub Actions, AWS code building. You can use in Circle CI, Jenkins in your CI/CD pipeline, Azure DevOps pipeline, and GitLab CI/CD. Other example, but you don't have time to explain during this specific presentations. But this is the possibility that you exactly place that you can use the autosec in another way, right? So let me return here once again in the documentations, by the way, and I'm go to extension as explained. Let's see here about the scanning. Yeah, autosec found 4 vulnerabilities were found, as you can see here. So if I go to this specifically folder in the JavaScript, as you can see here, you can go here and can click it in the specifically vulnerable code. So if you put here the mouse above the code, you can see here the explanation. So JavaScript autosec engine, as you can see here, is the engine responsible to detect this specifically vulnerable code. In this case, the explanation is the insecure random number. And by the way, take a look that this is very, very nice reference. So if you can click here and copy this specifically code. So let me copy here, and you can open here in another browser. Let me pass here and take a look that this is information very, very useful that you can use. In this case, this is the vulnerability using of insufficiently random value. This is the main CWE. In this case, it's acronym of the common weakness enumeration. Very interesting and useful information about the secure. Remember, we're gonna talk about the DevSecOps culture, but in this specifically time, we talk about the secure. So you can see here about the more information about this source, right? And here is the explanation of this specifically vulnerability. And as you can see here, you can see others parent of this specifically vulnerability. I mean, another different vulnerability associated of this specifically, and this is the main vulnerability in this case, and this specifically code. And if you see here, this is the line of the code vulnerable, very useful and very interesting, because you can see here the line. So if you are a developer, you can work in this specifically line to make some adjustments or some adaptations of this specific code. And in this case, it's another vulnerable code here. So if you see in this case, it's another vulnerability. As you can see, in this case, it's 78. Let me copy here and I will paste in another browser, in the same browser actually. But if you see here, let's check about what is exactly the vulnerability in this case. It's an 7.8. So it's an improper neutralizations of a special elements used in an EOS command. So maybe the attacker can use in the EOS command injection. So this is the possible vulnerability. In this case, as you can see, the attacker can use in the ls-l. So they can list the information inside of this specifically path. So it's a vulnerable code. So you need to treat that. So another point is if you see here, let's check, it's a Horus sec engine. But in this case, and this is specifically vulnerability, as you can see, take a look at, in this case, they using the GoSec engines. Very, very interesting, because as you can see here, it's almost a framework, because you have more than one engine or engine inside of this specifically tool. And in this case, there's the engine identify this specifically vulnerability using a weak cryptography primitive. So that's very interesting, because they're using here the GoSec and different engine from these specifically tools. Very, very, very nice and very, very useful. Okay, so let's go to another very interesting information that you can collect from the HorusSec. Let's click here in web applications, right? You can click here in overview. Basically, the web applications is an extension of the CLI functions in order to manage the vulnerabilities found and share them. It's very interesting, because you can work, of course, is with a multi-tenancy functionality. You can use it, for example, to access control. You have a more visions, and it's more maybe a tech lead visions or manager vision, because you can see how many vulnerabilities you have inside the different squad or different teams, right? And you can divide for a repository. It's very, very, very nice, right? Let me click here in installing. You can use it, for example, with the Helm, with an operator. I will use in this case with the Docker Compose. So basically, what is exactly Docker Compose? You have here the configuration, some informations. You can click here to see the requirement, basically, right? To see if you have all those environments set. If you're using, for example, General, or using Helm, or using Docker. I will use in Docker. So basically, I just need to have the Docker Compose and the Docker. Okay. Basically, I already installed it in my environment. So let me clone it here to see. Let's put it here in live now. So cross your fingers and let's see what happened now. So let me pass here. Let me click here and cloning the repository. And once again, we have here the HorusSec platform dash platform actually. So let's go to HorusSec and platform. And okay, so I install. Let's go to the next steps. Clicking in cd HorusSec platform. It's okay running the command make install. So cross your fingers. Let's see here, make install, and I think it's something are happen. Okay, I'm installing, not setting the API. So here, as you can see, all those environment. So webhooks, authentications process, endpoint vulnerability, and is starting many different process. As you can see here, the HorusSec API, analytics, webhook, vulnerabilities, authentication, manager, API, core. So many different Docker informations inside of that. I probably already had, yeah, stopping because I need to finish it, and removing, and I'm installing once again, as you can see here, the new version. Okay, so downloading all those process, pulling, installing the Dockers, many different Docker, as you can see here, the last version of the API, all those processes in the specific installations process. Okay, and that's the point here. So let's return here. So after step is access this specific URL. Let me copy here. I will copy and I will open in another browser. Let me pass here, not city in this case. It's a local host basically, because I'm installing in my virtual machine. In my specific virtual machine, I'm waiting. Although I'm waiting because of that doesn't work. So HorusSec PostgreSQL, all those process created, the pull request, the pull complete. So I need to waiting for for that. So yeah, we need to wait in the loading process. As you can see here, it's totally live, as you can see here. And let's check here once again. Yeah, so the service is running. So some services running, but let's check here. Yeah, I need to waiting because not finished the process, not completed yet. So let's check here. So 100 megabytes. So waiting. Let's check here the authentication. So you can use it, for example, as SO single sign-on, for example, you can use in that, no problem if you want. So this is the ORSEC manager. Yeah, it happened because it's not finished yet. Because of that, we need to wait about that. So very, very interesting. So by the way, this is the okay, so let me return it. Let's go to the documentation once again. I would like to explain another very interesting point. Remember, this is just a POC for a POC, right? And by the way, let's go to install with the Docker Compose. And we have here the default information, as you can see, in this case, in this test, okay? So this is the email, right? And this is the password, but remember, only for test, only for POC. So let's check here. So probably I have some problem here. So let's check. I received the error. Let me try once again, probably. Let's check here if it works or not. So one sec. Let's try. Okay, it works. So let me pass here the example and let me go to the specifically password. After, let me. Okay, so localhost once again, localhost. Let's go to the information dev. The dev at example.on, and let me pass here the full password. Okay, and click and sync. I have here another repository, but basically we have here, I can add, for example, a workspace. Let's put here, for example, DevSecOps. Let me copy and paste here. This only one. This is basically the new workspace. I can save here and I can select that. So after that, I can, let's check here, the repositories and settings. Home. So okay, let's return here, select. I need to add the repositories to proceed. Let me add the repository, DevSecOps. So remember, you can describe that, save, and I can go to it's created this specifically environment. Let me click in overview. And now I have here the informations about this specifically environment, okay? And I have here the vulnerability. I need to have the tokens and users and webhooks and so on, okay? And I have here the possibility to export something. Let me click here in tokens. And by the way, I don't have any tokens yet. I will add a specifically token. I will put in here the descriptions, basically the DevSecOps. I can see here what time I would like to expose this specifically password, but I don't put in here in this specifically moment. I will click here and save and pay attention. Congratulations, the token was being created. So with token, you access, analyze the context, save in a safe place, okay? So I will copy this, and now I can use in here, for example, let me return it once again. I can go to my specifically Java folder here, as you can see, and I will executing my ORSEC CLI here. And of course, don't have a time to explain all those steps about the ORSEC start dash A, and I will put here basically my token. Maybe you are thinking, Filipi, how I can executing the ORSEC? This is the good point here. Again, we don't have a time, but basically this is the command to start the CLI, and dash A is to set the token to authentication process. I click in enter here, as you can see, and after that I will perform this scanning and this specifically folder, okay, and this specifically directory. And how, as I put here this token, remember that this is the token here responsible for this specific project, and I can click here in the actions and I can delete that. Okay, and after that, I executing that. After this scanning performed, I will send all those informations vulnerable inside of this specific code for this specifically manager console. Remember that. In this case, I'm just using this and one specifically project, one specifically directory. But let's suppose that you have more than one team to work, so you can manage that. You can see more about how many vulnerabilities you can find in different projects, right? In different teams. And let's suppose they have different programming language. You can work in a different way, because you can create, for example, a training with how you can work with a development, a safe, right, or secure development process. You can improve with the specific programming language like a Java, like Python, like a Ruby, or another different programming language, right? And that's very interesting. So another point is, when you perform this specifically using IDE, you can set the same -a to send all those information. If you're using, for example, as you can see here in the documentation, using, for example, a CLI, but using, for example, a pipeline, let me go through here, for example, and specific GitHub actions. You can set here the crawl to install the tools, using the autosec, start to execute the CLI, -path to see the specifically path, right? -a and -true if you have some vulnerability, and after that you can put here the -a to set the token, and after that setting the API, the endpoint to the manager to receive these specifically informations, right? So after that I performed that. We found one specific vulnerability high in this specific code. So let me return here to our autosec manager. Let's go to our dashboard and let's see here if it works or not works in this case. So let's check if it works good or not. In this case, I didn't receive it yet. Let's check here. In this case, code today, apply for today, and I didn't receive yet. So let's confirm that. Let's check here. It works the token, the authentication token. Let's see here. -a to send using the authentications. Yeah, probably something are happening here in this case. Let me return here in the specific manager once again. Repository, let me go to the overview. And yeah, I didn't receive yet, so probably they can send some adjustments inside of these tools. Yes, during this presentation, they put in, for example, the Spanish language, because the ORSEC just had an English program language, not the informations about the users, but now we have a true difference in Portuguese and Spanish. So they put in some improvements during this presentation. So let me return here to the ORSEC demo just to see if you have some logs, just to show you. Here's some logs that I would like to present to you basically. As you can see here, this is the important information. So if you see here, there are 5 specific vulnerabilities, high, medium, and low. As you can see, for developer and for specifically program language, as you can see here in this case is Go, Java, and JavaScript. And as you can see here is the vulnerability. So how you can treat that. If it's vulnerability, if it is, for example, risk accept or false positive of or if it's a correct that, for example. So this is basically the improvement that you can manage all those vulnerabilities found in this specifically code, right? So this is the information that you can see. So if you see here is the ORSEC demo. Basically, this is my main repository, as you can see here, right? And oh yes, this is the error, as you can see here. I have some problem here with the API. So because of that, I didn't receive. Yeah. Yeah. I probably have some blocks inside of my environment, and we don't have to improve this now. But basically this is the information that I would like to show in this specifically our Sec Manager, right? As you can see here, all those vulnerabilities inside of this specifically code. Yeah. And okay, then this moment I finish here my presentations. I don't know if you have any questions. So please, if you have any question, let me know. Once again, you can manage different tokens, different users, different developers. You can improve your development process. That is the idea behind of that. So once again, thanks so much for being here with me. And if you have any question, please let me know.